Guys, great to see you. I felt like the weekend, like Trump must have been like, hey, Saturday, I've got a lot going on. Let's just announce all these guys real quick. I mean, you've got Pam Bondi at DOJ, Russ Vought at OMB, Scott Bessent at Treasury, Scott Turner at HUD, Seb Gorka, our buddy, going to the National Security Council, Alex Wong going to the National Security Council, and then Brooke Rollins, the head of America First, the Policy Institute, the former domestic policy coordinator for the White House as the USDA pick. And then he's got Dr. Marty McElroy, a Johns Hopkins surgeon for FDA chief, former Fox News contributor Dr. Jeanette Neshwat as Surgeon General, and Dave Weldon, former congressman and doctor from Florida, to direct the CDC. Sarah, I mean, I feel like it's flood the zone, like, and I'm excited about all these picks.
Yeah, I am as well. And I think that, you see, of course, RFK, who was previously announced, but you see, I think, the influence that RFK has had, particularly on, of course, Dave Weldon and Marty McElroy. So for FDA and CDC. And I think that reflects in these particular picks. Look, if I were to like nitpick, I do have some questions about Pam Bondi's 2A stance. I do have some questions about Dr. Jeanette's prior COVID stances. But overall, I think these are really strong picks because you're looking at a president who has done this before, and he can look at the mistakes that he made the last time around. He can look at the mistakes that he made trusting the wrong people the last time around, because as he's mentioned, he came into this not knowing anyone. He came into this, asking the wrong people for advice, for picks. And now you have someone who is on the other side of this, 91 indictments later, 2 assassination attempts later, ready to hit the ground running. And I think that that's what you're seeing in all of these picks, that he is, just, as you mentioned, flood the zone. I thought I was going to have a weekend, Sean, and I didn't have a weekend. I didn't have a weekend because he can't stop naming names. I'm like, I just wanted some free time, and I haven't had that since the election. But I'm really, really excited.
I want to get back to the picks because I want to hear what Tony Katz. But Amber, I know that maybe this is Sean being nitpicky, okay? But the media kept saying the cabinet is complete. The cabinet is complete. The cabinet's not complete. I don't mean to be like, the U.S. trade rep is a member of the cabinet. That's not chosen. The administrator of the Small Business Administration is not chosen. And I again, maybe you're just like, hey, get over it. We won, and stop being so nitpicky. But when the media all weekend kept saying Trump's cabinet is complete, it's not. That's a lie. It's misinformation. And maybe I'm just so triggered by how much they spread misinformation that I want to get this out. But I kind of feel like when I started to say, when they were like, the cabinet's complete, I was like, wait a second, who's the USTR? Who's the SBA administrator?
I feel like they're saying that because they so desperately want it to be filled, because they are probably getting triggered every single time a new name is announced. They're like, no, not him. No, not her. Please let it be finished. But yeah, I mean, this is classic. When they're not smearing some of the nominees, then they're trying to pretend that the cabinet's filled at this point. It's obviously ridiculous. I, like Sarah, am excited about a lot of these picks, especially Dr. Marty McElroy. He has shown himself to be someone who's willing to question health orthodoxy. If you haven't read his latest book, Blind Spots, it is an absolute must read, especially for women out there who are interested in things like fertility and health as they get older. He challenges so many narratives that have been pushed throughout the medical community. It's incredible. But I think what's really different...
What's the name of the book?
Blind Spots.
Blind Spot.
It's so good. I read it this summer. True, I learned so much. But also, the other thing that's so interesting about this slate of cabinet picks is how quickly, of course, we've been getting them all. Trump was clearly ready to go, right? This is not 2016 scrambling to throw together something at the behest of Reince Priebus. Trump had a lot of these names ready to go. He clearly is excited about them. He can't help himself from releasing them all over the weekend, and I think it's great.
Tony, you heard some of the names get tossed around. Is there anybody, one, that you're excited about that got named, or second, that you're like Sarah mentioned, that you're maybe a little hesitant of?
So when Sarah brings up Pam Bondi, the former attorney general of Florida, I think that her 2A stance, specifically, I think it was red flag laws, right? Like that was
yes.
That's something to be concerned by. I'm a guy who, when first I heard about red flag laws, the idea that a family can help somebody who's mentally ill get adjudicated, go through a judge, and not be able to get a firearm, okay, that logically makes sense. And then you see how states take advantage of it and try and take away the rights of people. You're like, okay, we can't have this. We can't do this. We can't have nice things in America because people don't know how to act appropriately. I think it's correct to ask Pam Bondi about these questions. When we take a look at Tulsi Gabbard, I'm not sold on Tulsi Gabbard. I think that has to be the most sober confirmation that takes place. Not everything is a winner. Now, for me, I'm a no on Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I think he could talk about health. I think he can be a voice from the outside. I don't want him anywhere in the administration because his history is a history of radical progressivism, a guy who wanted to throw you in jail if you weren't somebody who believed in climate change. I've been in the room where he's talked about reapportioning dollars, which is to say wealth redistribution. That's not a cabinet guy. The fact that on children's health and some other things, he's got good things to say, he's making sense, then let him do just that from the outside, like Ramaswamy and Musk. But I think the one that is going to give him the most pressure is Chavez Demerer, the
Labor Secretary.
Oregon, right? One-term Republican being nominated for Secretary of Labor, as you just said, Sean. And this is somebody who favored the PRO Act. This is somebody who favors unions on unions.
Oh, yeah. She was supported, by the way. The Teamsters were all behind her. I mean,
yeah. So that's a no. That's just.
Right, can I go back? Look, I want to go back to what you raised on RFK real quick. Just show of hands. If you were a U.S. Senator and got to vote, how would you vote on RFK? Let's go through the dais. The gentleman from Indianapolis votes
nay.
The gentlelady from Texas.
Oh, hell nay. That's
yeah. I'm sorry. I'm voting yes. I have children and I've been following RFK for a while on health and I'm a big yes.
Amber, I'm assuming are you in the Commonwealth of Virginia or DC?
I am, yes.
Okay, good. All right. So the gentlelady from Virginia, how does she vote?
She votes yes.
Okay. The reason I think this is interesting is a brand new poll out that shows from CBS 80% of Republicans support RFK, 47% of Democrats. But here's the thing that's fascinating about Tony Katz's position. He gets a higher approval rating from Republicans than, say, Marco Rubio, who's a Republican, right? This guy's a Democrat. I will say let me dial this back. I believe that the big difference that Amber was pointing out about this crop versus the last one is people got appointed last time and it was like, okay, go off and do your thing. And Donald Trump this time's like, I don't care who you are. You're here to implement my agenda, not yours. So I will give some of them some leeway as long as they understand that it's Trump that got elected. It's Trump's agenda, not theirs. Okay. That being said, I'm more concerned about life issues with Kennedy. I'm with Sarah on the Maha stuff. Like, I think that Bobby Kennedy has shown a huge spotlight on conflicts of interest, on issues about what doctors know and don't know, how they administer health. Okay, I am concerned about his lack of concern for the right of the unborn. And that's where I have an issue with Bobby. And as long as he can say, I understand it's not my agenda, I'm okay with it. But Tony Katz, is there any persuading you on Bobby?
No, not there. There is no persuading me on Bobby Kennedy. But the argument you're making is, by the way, the correct argument. You're hearing the left discuss more and more that look at all these people Trump are appointing. They're all loyalists to Donald Trump. Is there anybody in the Biden camp right now, in the Biden administration, the Biden cabinet, who isn't a loyalist? They watched Joe Biden for 4 years be completely incompetent, completely incapable, not know where he is, and incapable of running the country, and not a one of them spoke up. All cowards, all of them loyalists, all of them kissing the ring. Of course, it should be Trump's agenda moving forward and leading. On that, I give you that point. That is very solid. Of course, it's Trump saying this is what we're doing, and they're needing to follow that agenda.
I love that point, by the way. That, it's so important. Like number one, Biden's cabinet is completely complicit. They cover it up a lot. But number two, do you want the subject to be like, President Trump appointed someone to be fill in the blank today who completely hates him and is opposed to his agenda? I mean, that's
which is what he did. That's what he did the first time around. That's what came back to bite him in the butt whenever he did this the first time around. Was he had constant leaks. He had, New York Times anonymous op-eds about how they needed to remove him from presidency. He was plagued with that his entire presidency last time around. So of course he's going to have loyalists. It's such a ridiculous talking point.
I am most excited in a dorky way about Russ Vogt taking over OMB. Because Amber, the thing is, I feel like all of this talk about change stems from whether or not you have the budget to execute it or not. So whether you like Bobby Kennedy and what they can do at Maha, or reducing the deficit, or taking on China, or making sure that we have the tools we need at the Defense Department, it all stems from budget authority. You need money to do things. And Russ Vogt gets it.
He does. And I worked with OMB when I was covering the White House under Trump the first time around. And I was always very impressed with how much he understood the process and how far he was willing to go to try to implement Trump's agenda. He was never sitting there saying, we can't do it. He was thinking creatively about how to respond to the things that Trump wanted to do. At the end of his term, they had managed to have a lot of budget cuts related to China, which got really undercovered. But they basically ended a bunch of these foreign aid programs related to China through OMB. And in the meantime, since the last administration, he's been running the Center for American Renewal, which has been on the outside trying to advance Make America Great Again and America First policies as well. So I think it's a great pick to have somebody in there who really knows the levers that he can push in order to help Trump out. That's the type of role where you need somebody with some experience.
Sarah, you mentioned how it was the first time. So let's divide this into season 1 and season 2. If you look back, how do you think season 2 is going to be different from season 1?
Well, I mean, we're already seeing the beginnings of that. As we're talking about, he's hitting the ground, totally running. He's thought this out. I mean, I've talked with people who were in the running, even the final 2 selection for some of these cabinet positions. And they told me they were having these conversations beginning in June, July. I mean, beginning in the summer, they're already talking with the Trump team. So the Trump team was already heavily vetting these people. They knew what they wanted to do. They knew the direction that they wanted to go in, and they are ready to implement this because they see that the people are hungry for this America First agenda. And not to mention, we're like on the verge of World War III, right? We've got Joe Biden just increasing all of this tension between Russia and Ukraine, flooding in all of these illegal immigrants with this new, app where they can just bypass even meeting anyone from Customs and Border Protection in person. I mean, he's intentionally making our country less safe and making the world less safe. And I think Donald Trump looks at that and knows I've got a job to do and we've got to hit the ground running on day one. I have a lot to accomplish in a very short amount of time. And I just think that he has seen what happens when you have the wrong people implementing your agenda or not implementing your agenda, as it turned out for him. And I think that he sees the shortfalls. I think that he sees, even with COVID, Sean, I talk to a lot of people and I have complaints about how Donald Trump handled COVID. But rather than asking for a personal apology for the people that he put in charge that did wrong things, Anthony Fauci, Deborah Birx, what did he do? He has like the biggest COVID skeptic in charge of health now, right? He has Dave Weldon. He has all of these people. So I think that he really understands what time it is, and he's ready to deliver to the American people what he promised that he was going to do.
There's also a CBS YouGov poll that dropped either yesterday or today that says 59% of Americans support the way Trump is handling the transition. This is just greater evidence of the fact that he does have a mandate for this.
Tony, I think that day one, I mean, I remember my day one, he signed like 25 executive orders, and we kind of, I think that this is like, I've said the phrase before, buckle up, baby. I don't think people have any sense of how intense the afternoon of January 20th is going to be. He is going to, whether it's immigration, trans stuff, we'll get to that in a minute. I just, policy after policy, they're not waiting. And to Sarah's point, I think the biggest difference and the biggest understated thing that is not getting talked about is that they spent the last 4 years planning this. And like, okay, if we ever get the keys to the car again, we're ready to go. We know exactly where we're going. We know the route. We know where we're going to stop. I mean, this is not going to be like last time where we were kind of like, making it up as we went. They know what they're doing and how to come out of the chute.
This is, I would argue, for a lot of us, maybe for all of us, the first time we're going to see Republicans taking control and acting like Democrats. We've got an agenda. We're going full steam ahead. We're going to run over your mother. We don't care what you say. We don't care what you think. We're going to pass this. We're going to pass that. We're going to laugh at you on this one. Then we're going to pass the next one. Then we're going to have lunch. Then we're going to pass this and we're going to pass this. And then we're going to have ourselves a light snack because we're on a diet. And then we're going to cut spending. And then by the end of the day, we're all going to have a beer. It's that level of aggression is probably, I think, for the people who have been supportive of Trump from the beginning, and all those people, whether they're low propensity voters or independents who came over for Trump, this is the part they're going to be most thrilled by, that it's just happening. No talk, no bluster, no, hey, how good do I look in my suit for the television camera? Get it done, get it done, get it done. What's next? That, I think, is absolutely it. That's the differentiator.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.